Factoring notes, day number 2. So remember, when we're factoring, we're trying to find the two binomials that we would multiply together that would give us that. And the way to look at this is to put the third number, 40, on the top of our diamond and 13 on the bottom. And then think of what two numbers multiply to be 40 and add to be 13. Well, 5 and 8 work. 5 plus 8 is 13. 5 times 8 is 40. So over here, my two factors are x plus 5 and x plus 8. For the second example, again, we're trying to find the two factors. Make your diamond, 40 on top, negative 13 on the bottom. Very similar to the first equation, except when I find my two numbers, they need to add to negative 13. But if you notice, when they multiply, they should be positive 40. So 5 and 8 would work again, as long as they're both negative. So my factors would be x minus 5, x minus 8. For example 3, you'll notice I have negative 40 on top, 3 on the bottom. So two numbers that when I add them together, they're going to be 3, but when I multiply them, they're negative 40. Well, when I multiply them, if I get negative 40, that means one of the numbers had to be negative. So negative 5 and 8 would work, because multiply them together, I get negative 40, add them together, I get 3. So my factors are x minus 5, x plus 8. And if you have trouble thinking of what the factors are, remember you can use that factor chart. It comes in handy. And this one, negative 40 on top, negative 3 on the bottom. So two numbers that add to be negative 3 but multiply to be negative 40. That means one of the numbers must be negative. So, and I want them to end up adding to negative 3, so maybe 5 and negative 8. When I add them together, I get negative 3. When I multiply them, I get negative 40. So it's x plus 5, x minus 8. So there's 4 examples where we used 8 and 5 in different ways to get the different equations. So you just have to be careful that your numbers, add to the bottom number, multiply to be the top. For this example, I want to show you two of these. Top number is 7, bottom number is 8. So it's two numbers that multiply to be 7, but add to be 8. So of course, 1 and 7 work well here. 1 times 7 is 7, 1 plus 7 is 8. So it's x plus 1, x plus 7. So whenever the middle number is 1 more than the last number, this is what's going to end up happening, is 7 and 1. Here's another example. Top number is 13, bottom number is 14. So two numbers that multiply to be 13 but add to be 14 would be 1 and 13. So again, the third number was 1 less than the middle. When that happens, we're usually going to include 1 in our answer. Now our last examples, you'll notice there is no x term. If you look in all the other examples, there was a middle term that had an x in it. This one is missing that middle term, okay? When it's missing the middle term, what's really happening is that the middle term was 0. So for my diamond, I put negative 49 on top, 0 on the bottom. Now you don't have to write this equation. You could just realize that, hey, the middle term here is 0, and write it down here. So I need two numbers that multiply to be negative 49, but when I add them together, they cancel out. So the numbers must be the same number, one positive, one negative. And the kind of the fast way to get it is to take the square root of 49, which would be 7, but one of them has to be negative. So when I add them together, they cancel out. When I multiply them, I get negative 49. So the factors are x plus 7, x minus 7. So here's another example. Same idea. Put negative 81 on top. There is no middle term, so it's 0. So I need two numbers that when I add them together, they cancel out to 0. When I multiply them, I get negative 81. The trick is take the square root of 81 is 9. One of them will be 9, and one of them will be negative 9. So x plus 9, x minus 9.